All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you guys to ask questions. So if you would like to ask a question, just unmute yourself and go ahead. Who's going to be our first brave question asker?
I will. Okay, so I'm Alicia, and so your guys' advice, like what would your advice be to someone who has like a diverse ag program, like not just like farming and things like that, like kids from the city and like bringing all of it together full circle? Like how would you guys do that?
I'll jump in and start on that, Alicia. Very good question. When I started at Waterloo, our curriculum was somewhat stagnant. And so that was one of the first things that I worked at doing, was offering a variety of classes so that students can explore interest in a lot of the areas of agriculture. And now we have an ag engineering course, biotech engineering, and we just started a veterinary science class this year. So I think if you have that ability to broaden the curriculum that's offered, you'll attract a lot of different interest in students to those classes.
To build off that, one of the things that we do that's pretty successful is we start recruiting with 8th graders. So 8th graders take an exploratory ag course for a semester, and that's where I really hit home with them that agriculture is for everybody, that if you eat food, wear clothes, live in a house, you're involved in the agriculture industry, and a consumer is just as important as the people who produce. So, they start to learn that unless you're going to be naked, hungry, or homeless, agriculture is going to impact you in your life. So we do a lot of career education, try to open their eyes to different fields. And then in that course, we also do little snippets or tastes of what the classes are at the high school level to try and build their interest. And then once you kind of hook them, then they're a little bit more likely to branch out and take a course they may not have been interested in to begin with, because they're comfortable with you as a teacher. So really it's your job to show them that there's a whole world that they don't even know, and they need to trust you to try and explore.
That was a great question. Who's got our next question?
I guess I do. What like inspired you to become an ag teacher, and like what still inspires you to this day to like keep teaching?
Veterans, you want to take I feel like 17 years, you have a little bit longer of keeping the inspiration alive. So I'll just take the early part of that. What inspires myself to be an ag teacher and what inspired me to become an ag teacher is maybe as lengthy of a story as some of you have been alive. So I will shorten it with this, that it's simply all of you. That I wanted to be an agriculture teacher because I wanted to represent the same people that inspired me when I was your age, and that I wanted the opportunity to share something I'm passionate about. And how could we be more passionate about anything than literally, as Ms. Biswell just said, like what puts the clothes on our back, the food on our table, and the roof over our head. And agriculture impacts all of our lives on a daily basis. And so that alone is what fires me up every morning and gives me a lot of satisfaction in my job, is that I get to teach people where their food comes from. And that's pretty cool.
As I'm looking through the chat there, I'm not sure exactly what your guys' breakout box activity was, but the word impact was obviously the cornerstone of what you learned, just came from learning about. And I think from a daily basis, that's kind of what fuels our fire as ag teachers, is that we get to make that impact in our career. And so when I was going into college and trying to make a career choice, I wanted something that I could feel like I was impactful with, and teaching ag was where I fit in high school, and that's where I try to help students fit in their high school career too. And I think more than anything, it's just choosing a career that you can be impactful in. So
from the other end, Tim and I we went to college together, so we've kind of been on the same path, and we've seen many of our colleagues maybe not make it to year 17. And I think what sets you apart is finding a life-work balance, being able to develop that, because really that's what keeps you mentally happy and ready to come back to work. And then also professional development, mixing it up, trying new things, that really reinvigorates you to be excited about the classroom. When kids get bored, teachers get bored, and we get bored when we have to do the same thing all the time. So even, this summer I attended a new conference, Germinate, and I loved every minute, and, looking forward to new opportunities that kind of get my gears going again. So if you get bored, that's where you really turn.
We probably all four won't answer every question, but this one I think is important that we hear all four perspectives on. As middle of my career now, the students, I agree with Mrs. Callahan and Mr. Tabor, those students and making an impact with you, that's very important. But another part of it is that you guys are considering a profession that's very unique. Ms. Biswell and I, we've worked together on projects, we encourage each other, we challenge each other. And that is motivation as well. I haven't had the opportunity to work with Mrs. Callahan as much, but Mr. Tabor and I work together a lot, and I give him a hard time about his youth and enthusiasm. But it's true. It's that next generation, that next wave of ag teachers that also keeps pushing. It pushes me to continue to be innovative, to continue to be better, because they expect that. The younger teachers expect that from us as veteran teachers, and then you folks that are here tonight at Elite Conference, you're that next group coming in, and I look forward to working with you in that capacity as well.
I'm going to add on, McKenna in the question submission had one that kind of goes along with that, and I think that Ms. Callahan can maybe talk about it. She asked if you ever had a different career path that you were planning on pursuing, and what made you decide ag ed over that other path?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I actually was 10 years in industry. So while I am only a third year ag education teacher, I worked in the agriculture industry for 10 years before becoming an ag teacher. And for me, it was very similar to what I'm doing now in terms of I always was kind of in a teaching and coaching role, just in a very different capacity than secondary education. Initially, I knew that I wanted to be in the professional animal science industry, and just unique life events led to this path. Mentors of mine called it a long time ago, and I ignored them and thought that they were silly. But really kind of what drove it home. And I can tell you guys this, but I can't teach it to you. It has to be something that you experience for yourself. Anywhere in the agriculture industry is going to feel like home for you. And I encourage all of you to pursue opportunities post-secondary, post your high school education in agriculture. But for me, at the end of the day, it was what matters the most. And for my opportunity to impact our community and impact my own home, that meant being in ag education and not in the corporate ag industry.
Awesome. Who would like to ask the next question?
I will.
Oh, we have a few. Who's up? Riker, I saw you in my screen.
Yeah. I guess I'll take this one. This is a little bit of a lighter question, but I do want to ask, what is your favorite class to teach and why?
My favorite class to teach is Introduction to Ag, just because you get to do a little bit of everything. We do a little bit of plant science, little soils, animal science. So it's kind of like you're the jack of all trades, but master of none. And the content isn't too deep, so I don't have to keep on refreshing myself about the content and all of that kind of stuff. And I really do feel like that as a teacher, the connection that you make with the students their first year in high school is what creates your program and what creates a legacy in your program. And so I really, really enjoy connecting with those first year members and coming up with a plan about how they're going to achieve things throughout high school. So I would definitely say Introduction to Ag.
I think mine's I love my ag business class. It's so much fun and it's really hands-on. Veterinary science, because that was a career path I had been interested in pursuing. So I'm super passionate about that with my kids, and we do all kinds of weird stuff. And I started an ag communications class a couple years ago, which is pretty unique. We do a quarter on each of the communications disciplines: photography, journalism with news writing, broadcast, and then web-based and social media. So that was something that I was interested in. So I designed the class, and kind of goes back to the previous question. It was something I wanted to do to keep things fresh, and it was a need I saw. So I ditched a class I didn't like, and I picked one that I did. So teach to your strengths, and that's what you really enjoy doing.
I love them all. I geek out about all of my classes. Right now, my favorites would probably be also agriculture business. And I have a business mind, and so I get excited about the career dialogue that I have with students and the applications to things that they're going to use their whole lives. As a teacher, I also love the cross-curricular component to ag business. I feel like of all of my classes, ag business ties so well into several of the other pathways in the high school. And so I enjoy that when light bulbs go off and you guys tell me like, oh, we did this last year with so-and-so. And so that gets me excited. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I love horticulture because it's the one that challenges me the most to find new ways to teach students things, but also learning alongside of them. So I enjoy the aspect of learning while my students learn.
And mine would be ag business as well, but for a slightly different reason. That is my last opportunity to make a difference on those students before they leave Waterloo High School. And I think it's fun to help prepare them for life after high school, if that's college or careers, and start to see the connection of their high school education and how it'll impact them when they're becoming mature, responsible adults.
All right, I know we had a few others that were asking questions.
I had one.
I did too.
Did you guys struggle finding jobs, and what were your struggles as your teacher?
No. No, it was not a struggle to find a teaching job. In fact, the one that I'm currently in, they called me before the position was open. And I think that right now you guys are in a really unique position to build relationships with people like Jennifer and Megan, because that's literally their job, is to build relationships with you. And as you go through college, then knowing the right fits in different communities that you could potentially be employed by. And we need ag educators, and so I think you will be uniquely surprised by what they can do to help partner you up with the right spot.
I think the other side to that, I know I did not have a hard time finding a job, but I've had student teachers that have had a hard time finding placement, and maybe they've gone through 3, 4, 5, 6 interviews before they wound up accepting a position. And what I try to teach them is that's not bad. If you don't get a position, it's because it wasn't a fit. So I think there's, because there is such a demand for ag teachers right now, and there is, of course, a shortage, you hear stories of, well, I got offered a job before I even started student teaching. And that maybe put some pressure on other candidates that they feel like if that hasn't happened to them, then there is something wrong with them. And that's not true. So what I would say is, no, you're going to have opportunities. You'll need to evaluate if it is the best fit for you. And if you're not getting offers right away, then that's okay. It just means the right place has not come across your path yet.
I think, Lindsay, you cut out there a little bit, but I think the second half of your question was what struggles did you have your first year?
Yes.
Okay, good. As ag teachers, I think one thing that I've learned in the short time that I've been in the profession is that teaching ag is a day-by-day thing. You can try to have a plan, and I'm a big planner, so I like to, schedule things out, but it is truly a day-by-day profession. And as a first year teacher, I think that was probably my biggest struggle. I had this big vision and plan for what kind of teacher I wanted to be and what kind of programs I wanted to implement. And it really is just day by day and student by student. And so I think as a first year teacher, I learned that really quick, and playing to the strengths of my students and my administration and my community support, I think really helped me out along the way. So if I could give any advice for those of you who are maybe later in high school thinking about, starting a plan, is that, ag education is sometimes a day by day profession.
Lindsay, I'll add on the struggle part of it. It's been a long time since my first year, but I remember it very well. And Ms. Bisbal and I both have the opportunity to teach in our home communities, which as a first year teacher brings its whole different layer of struggles. The expectations are a little bit higher when it's your home community, and it just trying to get everything done that everyone wants you to get done is a challenge. And you set the tone for what your program is going to look like in that first year. And I think it was Ms. Bisbal earlier that said that work-family balance. And I did not do well on balancing that early. And that stays with you throughout your career when you set that tone in those first couple of years. So my advice is just learn how to find that balance early, and don't feel that you have to say yes to everyone for everything, especially those first couple years that you're on the job.
Someone else had a question.
Yes, I did.
I have one as well.
I do too.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, great. We got lots of
Yeah,
them.
I got a question too.
Okay.
Too.
Well, whoever wants to go first, just shout it
I'll
out.
go. What would be the biggest tip you would give to anybody that is looking to become an ag teacher?
For me, it's kind of a coping mechanism for that first year. Pick one night a week and do nothing. No, don't book yourself FFA things. Don't grade papers. Don't lesson plan. Pick a night and lay on the couch. Pick a night and go to have dinner with a friend. That was something my cooperating teacher taught me, and it made the difference. And I think that has a lot to do on why I'm here at year 17 instead of leaving at year 5. So that's my biggest tip.
I would give a tip on the front end. So like prior to becoming an ag teacher, is to gain as much experience in all the different aspects that agriculture has to offer you. So if you have an opportunity to intern or shadow in various aspects of agriculture, from production to business to sales, etc., I would say try and do that in your summers when you're in college, and participate in as many ag-based professional organizations in college that you can as well. That's for multiple reasons. Like obviously they're good resume builders, so they look nice on paper, but in the classroom, you will find that you're always pulling like reference points of personal experiences you have had or contacts that you have made. And those contacts and people to talk to, this year, for example, in virtual setting, I have still been able to have guest speakers because I have contacts with people that are willing to do that with me, that come from a variety of backgrounds. So I would say gain lots of agriculture experience.
All right, I saw Chris had a question. We'll do Chris, and then I saw Michaela. So we'll do those two, and then we'll keep moving through.
Yeah, my question is like, what would you guys say like the most hardest part about being a teacher is, like the most difficult thing?
Pre-COVID is the time management aspect, I think, is the biggest challenge. And I say that somewhat joking, but we're all experiencing, and you guys as students are experiencing this too, something that we were never trained for. And so remember that as you second guess your teachers and think, what in the world are they doing? We don't know what we're doing either. And that has been a big challenge now, is figuring out how to balance the different learning modules that we have and kids flipping back and forth in their instruction methods. So this whole, there's different stages of your career will bring different challenges, and that's important to remember as well.
Mine is patience. I forget regularly that things that are overwhelming to a freshman and a sophomore, I may think, what is your problem? Like, this is not a big deal. But I forget that this is the hardest that your life has ever been at your little baby point in your life. So having to step back and simmer down and remember that I'm 38 working with 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And, that's a piece. Be having grace and patience at times where it maybe runs a little short.
Michaela, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
So my question was, are there many schools that have like 2 ag teachers? Like, I know my school just converted to that this year. It's only going to be this 1 year. And then do you think it's like beneficial to like have like a co-teacher there?
I'll go ahead and start this one off by saying that I'm a single teacher, so I would love to have a partner teacher to split some of the workload, but also somebody to bounce my ideas off of and things like that. So coming from a single teacher, I know Tim and Corky have some great answers to give, but I'll give the opposite of it first and say that having 2 teachers is a very lucky thing, and I do envy them, but we all kind of manage in our own way as well.
I've always been in a 2-teacher program, and I, like Trent said, I love the fact that we can split responsibilities. I love that my co-teacher has a totally different color personality than me. If you're familiar with those, I'm a gold, he's an orange. We're opposite ends of the spectrum, but it works because our strengths complement each other and our weaknesses the other person can pick up. And it also helps be more inclusive towards more kids, I think. I'm a lot to handle, and I know that, there's some kids that we don't jive and they work with the other teacher and vice versa. So I think there's a huge amount of benefit also for, the work-life balance. If my co-teacher's kids have a ball game, I can take the students to an FFA thing and he can spend time with his family. And that's really precious. And I really don't know how Trent and Kendra, how single teachers handle it. I've never had to balance it, and my hat goes off to those people because you guys are way stronger than I am.
Megan had to step out for a minute. So Tim, I'm going to let you pick who gets to ask the next question.
See, now I wasn't paying attention to the name she said because they were bouncing back and forth. I do think, did Keely, did I see you say you had a question?
Yes, you did. So I am someone who comes from an urban environment with little connection to traditional agriculture. I want to teach in an urban environment. So how can future ag ed students like myself who are also interested in that best prepare ourselves for teaching in a non-traditional agriculture environment while still encouraging active FFA engagement?
So I don't necessarily consider Kewaunee urban, as we're still in, northwestern Illinois in a rural area. But of our area, we would be considered more of an urban setting. So there's, like 13,000 people in Kewaunee and just shy of 600 in our high school, which is very small compared to some of our more urban schools like in greater Chicagoland. However, in our high school, it's less than 1% of our student population has any production agriculture background. And so those students, they truly don't know what production agriculture looks like. And so I would encourage you to stay the path of just continuing to get ag experiences, because those students, the things that I get to introduce them to between CDEs and LDEs, like it's mind blowing for them. Last year, maybe it's been 2 years ago now, I can't remember, sorry. But some statements were made by some food chain restaurants about emissions. And my agriculture business class like did a deep dive into the marketing tactics and like understanding how emissions are spread across just our world in general and which industries impact all of that. And for the majority of those students, they hadn't ever had the opportunity to see or think about things in that way. And so I think if you want to go into urban ag ed, like go for it, sister. Like that is freaking awesome. We need teachers that are passionate like you to do that, because the message of agriculture is not just cows and plows, right? So step up, you got this, totally do it.
All right, who has the next question?
I have a question.
All right, fire away.
So what are some tips to get freshmen involved early?
Sophia, that's a good question. I think that varies a little by each program. There are some activities and some events that are just historically tied and important to each chapter. And if you have some of those, it's important to capitalize on those and get those students involved. We try really hard at Waterloo to have some of our older FFA members make those connections with those freshmen in the first couple weeks of school and invite them to everything. And I think that personal invitation goes a long way of making those new members feel welcome and wanting to be part of our group.
We do something. Oh.
Go ahead, Corky.
We do something similar, but we actually make teams. So each chapter officer is a team captain, and they're assigned, it's almost like a draft. So they're assigned to pick X number of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors to be on their team. And then the team works together to earn FFA points throughout the year. So you would get 10 points for a section contest, 5 points for placing in the top, 5 points for a chapter contest. So they're all kind of working together and encouraging each other. And then at the end of the year, the winning team gets recognized. But that's something that freshmen really can play a huge role in, because we have green hand level competitions and certain things that only freshmen can do. So those freshmen on the teams are super valuable, and they, kids are really encouraging each other. So that was one thing we did, is kind of gave it a competition flair.
We have a tradition at Cambridge where we put on a Green Hand Orientation Day, and when we go through the planning aspects with the chapter officer team of planning that day, I always ask the officers, who do you represent? What demographic or type of student from our high school do you represent, and how can you recruit them to be a part of the FFA? My first couple of years, it was probably half of the freshman class would come to Green Hand Orientation Day, but the last couple of years, it's been such a positive event that we've had all of our freshmen there, because our chapter officers worked, like kind of Tim and Corky touched on, to recruit the type of student that that they represent in the FFA, and to show that FFA is for everybody, and that's really worked well for us.
All right, who has our next question?
I have a question.
Okay, I saw Amber, and I'm not sure who, so we'll let Amber go first.
So one thing I really noticed in my high school is that there's a lot of people who get put in an ag class and they do not enjoy it at all. How can you make that connection with the students who really don't want to be in there and are not interested at all, and spark their interest to get them more interested and more passionate about the agriculture industry?
So I know you were cutting out a little on my end, just so that everyone understood the question. I think she was asking, how do you get students that are not interested in being in class passionate, spark their interest to be in the class?
I have a very good relationship with our high school counselor, so I rarely get a student in my class that doesn't want to be there. But I've definitely heard stories of that happening, and I may have had one or two throughout my time as a teacher that, you know, sometimes the kids' schedules just don't fit, and they're thrown into your class because it's the only thing that fits in their schedule. But kind of touching on some of the things that were said previous, some of the first units that I teach in almost all of my ag classes is how what we are talking about throughout this whole course relates to your life every day. So whether it be my animal science class or plant science class or intro to ag, we talk about how do animals relate to your everyday life, or plants as well. So making that specific connection from agriculture to, you know, your life is definitely very important.
Also, if you have those kids that, you know, either have moved in, have been placed in your class with no ag background, or they obviously don't want to be there, make a personal connection to them outside of the course content. Find out who they are, find out why they're in that class, find common ground between you and the student, and build on that, because a student takes that class because they're buying what you're selling. They are vested in you as a teacher, and they keep coming back because they want to be with you. So if you can build that relationship with a student, they'll be more likely to have an open mind towards what you're teaching in class and get more out of it. If they don't have a connection with you as the teacher, you could be teaching them how to light rockets on fire, and they're not going to enjoy it.
All right, who else had a question?
I had one.
Okay, a couple just went. I see Emily on my screen, so we'll go with Emily.
Okay. So, what would be like your advice or like your experience with teaching a class that like you never actually took in high school? Because like I know for us, we have a fairly small like ag selection, so we don't have like ag business or like ag mechanics. But I know those are something that I would want to teach in the future. So like, I guess what would be like your advice, or like what has been your experience with that?
It's probably going to happen. When I started teaching, half of my day was teaching ag mechanics, and I had never taken a mechanics class. I'd never welded before, and now I teach welding through two classes a day. So embrace the opportunity, because it's kind of fun to teach yourself some things that you don't know. Find out what students are in your first class that have the knowledge that can help you and can help other students. Even now, sometimes in some of our classes, when I try new things, I'm only a couple days ahead of the students in fully understanding where this is all going to go. And that's kind of the fun thing about what we teach. We can add new things. We can try. When I try to teach some of the agriculture technology components, it changes so quickly, and if we don't have that direct experience, we have to learn it as we go. And I think that's hard for young ag teachers to understand, that you're not going to be the expert on everything, and you're going to have to you're going to learn a lot along the way so that you can share that knowledge with the students.
And challenge yourself in college. Take the classes in college that relate to the things that you don't have experience with. It's very easy and tempting to want to take the ones that you're comfortable with, especially because you're paying for it and you're getting graded on it. But it gives you great resources and connections, like Mrs. Callahan was talking about earlier, that you will use for the rest of your life.
All right, who else had a question?
I had one.
All right, I don't know who started first, but go ahead.
Okay. What are some of the like challenges and rewards of your job? Because I know it's not always easy.
It is not always easy, but that's part of what makes it amazing. That it is a unique person to be ag teachers. So I will give you a reward So a reward is those like light bulb moments. So like when students buy in, Ms. Biswell talked about like students that keep coming back, like they keep taking your class because they want to spend time with you. I'm not sure there's anything more flattering than when a student enrolls in your class the next year. And so like clearly that like at that point they're making the decision to take your class, and that's pretty cool. There's lots of challenges. I have a fresh example from today. So I am generally a rather positive person, and I'm very positive about my school district. Today, I got a message or a phone call early in the morning that I needed to sub on my prep. And I was real frustrated because I teach more classes than anyone else in the high school. And so sacrificing my prep is precious time when I know that there are other teachers in the building that only have one prep and have the same like prep time that I do. But my two things. One, my last name's Callahan, so I come early in the alphabet. So when the secretary's got to call somebody, like I'm early. And then two, that they know I won't say no. And but it's hard not to be frustrated about those things or be envious of the teacher across the hallway that only teaches one class and leaves at 3:30 every day. There are days that is a challenge. And in this current structure that we're operating under, I told Mr. Callahan when I got home tonight that he was the first adult conversation I had had all day because I sacrificed my lunch in order to sub. And because of where the ag classroom sits, I don't see any other teachers all day long. And so that can be tough. It can be pretty isolating. And so you've got to find a good network like the people that are on this call to support you in this capacity.
I'll piggyback off of what she just ended with there and say that there are challenges every single day, but one of my favorite quotes is there's no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone. And as ag teachers, you truly don't understand until you're a part of it, the network of people that belong really in your family. And so I know that if I'm having a challenge 20 miles down the road, Mrs. Callahan is also having a challenge, and we can call and talk about each other's challenges. And so that makes our profession pretty awesome at the end of the day.
And that's something that no other teacher will ever understand. I mean, once you become part of our ag ed family, we literally are family. We look forward to seeing each other at competitions and conferences and conventions, and you go to each other's weddings and you share stories, and you become part of this incredible group together that you can share what's going on, and they understand. My mom is a teacher. She's a junior high science teacher, and she's constantly blown away. And she's like, Ag Ed gets it. Ag Ed supports you. You have things that I never even have access to. So while there are lots of very unique challenges to being an ag teacher, you are in, like, if you're going to be a teacher, Ag Ed for me is the only thing you possibly could do and manage to keep your sanity, because everybody else does not have this support network.
That is so true. Like literally other teachers tell me that they're jealous of like the Ag Ed family. And I would tell you guys, like, think about FFA events and how excited you get to see like that friend you met at leadership camp last year, or someone that's from another section that you only see at district contests. That's Ag Ed for us. Like, because some of us that are in those single teacher programs, like going to those events is the only times that we see someone else like that's like us, and it's a blast.
All right, who had the next question?
I have one.
All right, see Emily in my screen. And then Morgan, I saw you pop up, so we'll do you next. So Emily first and then Morgan.
So I actually have two questions. One, what college classes would you guys recommend taking, like highest priority, like take these and you'll do great? And two, how do you help spark interest in a kid that's taking an ag class just for an easy A, you know, just to get it over with and just get a credit?
The college classes, the first half of that answer is you have to follow the requirements of your degree program at whatever institution you pick. Similar to your checklist for high school graduation, there's a course sequence that you have to take, and some of those are only offered at specific times. So it's important to stay on top of that to make sure you get all your requirements in. Once you get those electives, different folks will give you different opinions on what you should do. My opinion, if you're wanting to become an agriculture teacher, take as many of the introductory level agriculture classes that your college offers. So if you get into the animal science department, the crop science, horticulture, whatever they offer, at least get the introduction level. And then if you still have a little bit of room in that schedule, pick one of those paths, one of those departments, and go a little bit deeper and take a 200 or 300 level course so that you have at least one content area where you've developed that knowledge bank a little bit farther. Your second question about sparking interest, sometimes those kids that think they have no interest in your class turn out to be some of your best students. You guys, I'm too old, you won't remember these names, but Chris Stepping was one of my former students. Miss Biswell probably is the only one on here who remembers Chris, but Chris started in my class because he needed a spot to be filled, and he ended up being one of our more active members, was a state officer, and has entered the ag industry and has done a really, really nice job with his career. And he really didn't want to do anything until I got him to go to the first event. And after that, he met some new people and kind of took off from there. So don't let that initial reaction of that the student says they don't want to be there close the door for you or that student to build that connection.
All right, I think Morgan had our next question.
Yeah. So if you guys have a really bad day at work, what keeps you going from, like, what makes you want to keep teaching and not want to give up? And what keeps the fire in your work alive, I guess?
Miss Biswell said earlier that her tip would be that you need a day a week that you're doing, doing your own thing. I would challenge you that you need something like every day. And like, if you've ever done any mindfulness or anything like that, it has to be events or things that you enjoy outside of work that you need to be able to recall in a moment's notice. So cheesy, but for me, it's when my horses are coming to the barn to eat. And so if I call them and they come running, and so literally just saying this out loud right now, I can physically picture them in my mind very well, like all of them galloping towards me to eat, and it instantly brings me joy. And so that's just a little thing, but for me, it's, you have to have things filling your cup outside of ag education in order to be able to fill others' cups during the day.
I save, I have a short-term and a long-term cup filler while I'm at work. Aside from, the joys that I get outside, I keep a board posted on my wall, and it's called Remember When. And anytime a student says something ridiculous or outlandish or like just makes me stop and laugh in class, I write it down on that card right away and it goes on the wall. So if I'm having a crappy day, I can remember the day that Tanner realized that camels don't lay eggs. Like, that makes me laugh. And then, so I do that throughout the whole year. And then I have a pile that I'll sort through on real bad days that says, this is why I do this. It's a manila folder, and it's like the thank you notes from kids. It's the drawings that they've done. It's the senior pictures they've given you. It's the wedding invite you got after they graduated. And that's in the why I do this pile. I don't have to dig into that one very often, but it's like the emergency. If it's real rough and you need a reminder of why you picked this path, those are two things that I use to keep me happy.
I'm not going to be quite as warm and fuzzy as Miss Biswell, but we tonight we have talked about all the positive things that come with this job, and I don't think I would be doing you service if we didn't mention that there are days that are not good. There are stretches of the year where I think all of us, the four teachers and Miss Waters and Miss Coy, that we've probably thought about doing something else. And those days will be there, and it is important to remember why you are considering this, why we as teachers have entered this field, to get through those rough stretches that will come. And as a first-year teacher, you'll probably get a few of those. And you'll probably be like, what in the world have I done? And just keep working through it and know that there are better days ahead of you if you have one of those.
All right, I think we have time for about one more question, then I'm going to let each person wrap up with some final comments. So does anyone want to ask one more question?
I have a quick one to ask.
All right, Beth, you showed up, so you get the last one.
What was something in the Ag Ed program that you chose to go to college to? Like, what did they have that sparked your interest at that university? So, like, what was in their program that made you choose them over any other university you were looking at?
I'll say this was a popular question in the list of questions. Why did you choose to go where you went to college?
I'll say something really quick because the other three will tell you something about like Ag Ed specifically probably, and the institution that they chose because of Ag Ed. So for me, two things. One, I did get my associates at Blackhawk College, and so I attended Blackhawk first. I was a legacy there. My entire family went there. My dad was on the very first traveling livestock judging team there. So I was going to go to Blackhawk and I was going to judge, and it was affordable. So that was a no-brainer. From there, I visited a lot of institutions, and I would highly recommend that you do that. And what was the and I had like all expenses paid to go visit them. So I really did go visit lots of institutions to feel what was right for me. And I'm standing outside of Weber Hall at Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas. My dad and I were standing at the top, and a manure spreader came through the middle of campus. And I was like, that's it. This is where I'm going. I'm going to school here. The place that has manure in the middle of campus. And that was it. That was done.
I'll piggyback off of what Kendra said and say you truly, the biggest thing is that you have to feel comfortable with wherever you're at. So I won't make too much of a sales pitch for where I went, but I will say that I did feel most comfortable at Western Illinois. And I do have my master's degree from Iowa State, out of state as well. And both of those degree programs really just made me feel like I was more than just a number. And I think that's very important in a degree program, that you have a good relationship with faculty. And, you know, if you have your professor's phone number that you can text them a question. I often went to Dr. Baker's house for family barbecues. I met his family. That kind of personal relationship that you get from a professor is what really makes your plan in ag education. So that's where I fit in.
For me, I grew up in a really small town right next to WIU, and I wanted to go away. I wanted to go away from home. That was my biggest priority. So for ag ed programs in the state, that left me with 3. And I visited them, and I picked the one that I felt most at home with, that I could get the most scholarship money to attend. That was a big consideration for me. I'm a big proponent for find a way to go to college for free, because you can definitely do it. And that was something that I really pushed for. If scholarship dollars had not been a question, I probably would have looked out of state a little bit more, and looked for, I would have asked better questions. I would have asked to meet some of the faculty. I would have asked, what does your teacher prep program look like? I would have asked to see things like, what's your test pass rates? What are your, like, how do you prepare for those kinds of things? And what kind of support am I going to get? So those would be some tips that I would recommend at this point, to just be an educated consumer when you go. The feel good is really super important if you feel like you fit, but it also needs to be can they get you where you want to be? Are you going to be happy during those 4 years there?
And for me, it was what the other 3 have said, but it's the people. I remember it very well. I met Chuck Olson at a career night at Waterloo High School when I was a student, and he never stopped recruiting me to the University of Illinois, and we made a very good connection. And at every FFA event, I saw Chuck, and then once he found out I thought I wanted to teach, he introduced me to Jeff Moss, who was one of the ag ed professors. And I'm going down memory lane here a little bit, but those two gentlemen played a huge role in my development through high school and into college. And I knew that if these two faculty members spent that much time trying to convince me that I was able to, and that they wanted me to attend their institution, that's where I needed to be. And the more I learned, the more I felt that it'd be a good fit for me. And so that's how I ended up at U of I.
Very good. Well, before I let everyone have their kind of final thoughts, I want to thank all of the students on here for being a part of the Elite Conference. We're going to let our 4 teachers give us our final thoughts, but before they do, I want to remind you all, before you head off today, that you do need to fill out the evaluation form. It's the little lightning bolt in the right-hand corner on the session 2 page. If you don't see a little lightning bolt, just start clicking. It might still be hidden there. If you want to stay on after we wrap up and ask questions, or you're having trouble, I'll stay on with you as long as we need to make sure you get that figured out. But I know we have some that need to get off right at 8. So I just want to make sure you fill out your evaluation, because that's how we get your score and you get your Teach Ag t-shirt if you hit those 30 points. And we want to get that to you. So I'm going to go ahead and ask each of we've got 4 minutes left and 4 teachers. So if you can all keep it under a minute and just give us your final thoughts.
I'll start. This is doing what you're doing is an important step in your development process, building that network with each other as potential future teachers, and meeting some of us across the state that can serve as your network. Those are important steps. Hopefully you stay interested and pursue ag education as a career. Have fun with it, and we'll continue to cross paths, I'm sure, as we go to more FFA and ag ed events throughout the next couple of years. Good luck.
I would encourage you to, you're going to be an agriculture teacher that is also an FFA advisor. So get experience with teaching. Find out what it is like to be a teacher. Don't just do this because you love FFA and the competitions, because you need to be prepared for all parts of your job. So you're a teacher first who also advises. And that would be my big take home, and we can't wait to have you as part of our family.
They say do what you love, love what you do. And there are days during this pandemic that we're experiencing that I often feel guilty because I'm still getting a lot of joy out of my job every day. And I think that's because I love what I do. And so I would encourage all of you to continue to pursue ag education because it's a very versatile career path. And so even if you don't end up in the classroom, you will be highly employable because of the opportunities you're taking advantage of now. I really enjoyed this evening.
They left me with the close, which is fine. I just want to tell everybody thank you. Teaching ag every day is different, and that's what we love about it. And having this on my calendar tonight was something that I was looking forward to. And getting to see all of you and seeing the potential that you have is really great, and makes me know that the future is bright for ag education. And if you have any questions, I know that all 4 of us would definitely not mind if you reached out. So feel free to reach out and let us know your thoughts, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Awesome. Everyone can feel free to hit that reaction button and give them some little virtual clapping signs. We appreciate them being with us, and we really appreciate all of you students doing this. We know that you have many things going on in your time too, and so we appreciate the fact that you decided to join us for 2 nights to learn about a career that you can, I'm sure, tell that we're all very passionate about. So this ends Elite Conference. I did want to share my screen again just to remind you the evaluation's right here in the corner. And if for some reason, like I said, you don't see the little black, it is still there. Just click on it and that will open up the evaluation. So we can learn a little bit about what you thought was the best part of conference, what we could work on. We hope that next year we're going to see your faces in person and that we get to connect with you at other events. If you need anything, my email's on here and on your letter. You can always reach out. Please do. We love talking with you and working with you. And I encourage you to please click around the Elite Classroom. There's all kinds of fun activities and different things that you can do, and share it. If you've got other friends that couldn't join Elite, but you think they would like some of this, we want to see all your friends checking it out. And with that, we are done. You can log off. I'm going to stay on and stay around and answer any questions. But again, thank you all for joining us.